Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where the day can loosen its hold and the mind may drift gently into quiet places. Tonight's journey follows a dreaming gondola as it glides through the silver fog of Venice, carrying soft lantern light, old memories, and peaceful wishes through sleeping canals. Settle in now as though the room around you has become a calm harbor. Let your shoulders soften. Let your hands rest easily. Let your breath arrive and leave at its own unhurried pace. There is no need to chase any thought, no need to hold on to anything that has followed you from the day. Each breath can be a small tide, moving out, returning in, smoothing the sand of the mind. Imagine the hush before dawn, when the world is neither night nor morning, and Venice seems to float between them. The air is cool and faintly sweet with rain on stone, with distant sea salt, with the quiet breath of old water beneath arched bridges. Lamps glow behind shuttered windows like small golden moons. The canals lie still, dark as velvet, touched here and there by ripples that gather and fade. And as breathing slows, the story begins to move away from the listening room, away from effort, away from waking thought. It slips gently into the city of mist, where a gondola rests beside a weathered wooden post, and where even dreams know how to drift. In a narrow canal near the quieter edge of Venice, where the old houses lean together as if sharing secrets, there floated a gondola named Liora. Her black lacquered sides had been polished by rain, moonlight, and many patient hands. Her prow curved upward like the neck of a sleeping swan. And when the tide rose beneath her, she seemed to bow to the stars. By day, Liora carried travelers through the city. She passed beneath stone bridges, past balconies draped with geraniums, past doorways that opened straight onto the green glass of the water. She listened to laughter, to whispers, to the soft splash of oars. She heard languages from far away, heard questions asked in wonder, heard sighs of people who had been searching for beauty without knowing they had already found it. But Liora loved the hours when the city slept, when the shutters closed and the last restaurant chair was brought inside, when footsteps faded from the alleys and the bells grew quiet in their towers, the gondola rested in the canal and listened to the fog. The fog came softly in Venice. It did not fall. It arrived. It crept in from the lagoon like a pale animal with silent paws, curling around mooring poles, brushing the steps of water doors, softening every edge until the city seemed painted in milk and moonlight. On some nights the fog was thin enough that Liora could see the lantern by the bridge reflected in the canal. On other nights it was so thick that even the bridge disappeared and the world became only water, wood, stone, and breath. It was on such a night that Liora first began to dream. There was no wind. The air held stillness like a secret cupped in two hands. Liora was tied to her post with a blue rope, the fibers damp and dark from the mist. Her gondolier Matteo had gone home hours before, stepping carefully along the fondamenta with his striped shirt hidden under a wool coat, humming a song too softly for anyone but the water to hear. Matteo was kind. He had learned the canals from his father, and his father had learned them from his mother, who had rowed at night when the city was younger and quieter. He always touched Leora's side before leaving, a small gesture of thanks, as if she were a friend who had carried him safely through the day. "Rest well," he would murmur, and Liora did rest. But in the fog, rest became something deeper. As the mist thickened around her, Liora felt the canal beneath her become smooth and endless. The old stones along the banks seemed to loosen their shadows. The windows above faded into pearl-colored darkness. The rope at her bow grew light, lighter still, until it no longer felt like a rope at all, but a strand of moonbeam. Then, without a sound, Liora slipped free. She did not move quickly. She drifted as a leaf drifts on a pond, with no hurry and no fear. The oar that lay across her belly lifted by itself, dipped into the water, and gave one quiet stroke. The ripple widened behind her like a yawn. Another stroke followed, slow and silver. Then the gondola was gliding into the fog. Venice at that hour was not the Venice of daytime maps. The canals did not lead where they usually led. A passage that should have ended in a wall opened instead into a wide, misty basin. A bridge that by daylight was low and ordinary rose now like an arch of white stone carved from cloud. Doorways appeared where no doorway had been before, their steps washed clean by tide and dream. Liora knew, in the quiet way that wooden things know, that she had entered the sleeping city beneath the waking one. Here, every canal remembered. The water remembered footsteps from centuries past, silk hems lifted from damp stone, the careful hands of glassmakers, the songs of boatmen, the hush of winter mornings when snow melted before touching the lagoon. The fog gathered these memories and folded them into soft shapes. As Liora drifted, a small lantern appeared at her prow, though no one had lit it. Its flame was not orange, but a gentle blue, like the heart of a star seen through rain. It gave just enough light to show the way, without breaking the darkness. The light trembled on the water, and each tremble became a tiny path. The first path led beneath a bridge where ivy hung motionless in the mist. On the far side, Liora saw a cat sitting on the lowest step of a palace door. The cat was gray, almost the color of the fog itself, with eyes green as lagoon glass. It watched the gondola approach without blinking. "Good evening," said the cat, though its mouth did not move. Its voice sounded like a paw step on velvet. Liora had never spoken before, not in words, but in dreams. A boat may answer as easily as a bell may ring. "Good evening," Liora replied, her voice creaking softly like polished wood in warm sunlight. The cat dipped its head. "The fog is deep tonight. It has brought old dreams to the surface." Liora slowed beside the step. Around them the city breathed in silence. Somewhere high above, a loose shutter tapped once and then was still. "What dreams?" asked Liora. The cat's tail curled around its paws. "Small dreams. The kind people lose without noticing. A baker's dream of a garden, a child's dream of a blue paper boat, a widow's dream of hearing a familiar song again. The fog gathers them and carries them until they find where they belong." Leora's lantern glowed a little brighter. "May I carry some?" she asked. The cat looked at her with ancient kindness. "That is why you are awake." Then the cat stepped lightly onto Leora's bow. It weighed almost nothing. With one paw it touched the blue lantern. From the fog came a shimmer, then another, then many. They drifted down like pale feathers and settled into the gondola, small, glowing shapes, each one no larger than a seashell. There was a dream that looked like a rosebud made of morning light. There was a dream like a warm loaf of bread, fragrant and golden. There was a dream like a folded letter sealed with silver wax. There was one that hummed softly, a tune Liora almost recognized, though she had never heard it before. "Carry them gently," said the cat. Liora dipped in the water as if nodding. The gray cat stepped back onto the palace step, and the fog closed around it until only its green eyes remained. Then those too vanished. The gondola continued onward. She passed through a canal so narrow that the walls on either side seemed to breathe against her. Damp stone smelled of moss and old rain. Above, balconies leaned over the water, their iron railings beaded with dew. The lantern's blue light brushed the walls, revealing tiny carvings in the stone. A fish, a moon, a wing, a hand. Each carving woke briefly as Liora passed. The fish flicked its tail. The moon opened like an eye. The wing shivered. The hand lifted in farewell. At the end of the narrow canal, the mist opened into a quiet square, filled not with pavement but with water. In waking Venice, such a place did not exist. Yet here it lay, serene and wide, surrounded by buildings with glowing windows and no doors. Reflections drifted on every side so that the square seemed made of sky below and sky above. In the center stood a fountain rising from the water itself. Its basin was marble, pale as cream, and from it flowed not water, but silver fog. The fog poured over the rim in slow cascades, spilling into the canal and spreading outward in soft waves. Beside the fountain sat an old woman in a shawl embroidered with tiny stars. She held a net made of threads so fine they were nearly invisible. With patient hands, she dipped the net into the mist and lifted it again. Each time something delicate glittered in the weave. A sigh, a wish, a memory of rain on a childhood roof. Liora drifted close. The old woman smiled without surprise. Ah, the dream gondola. Is that what I am? Asked Liora. For tonight, said the old woman, and perhaps for every night you remember. The little dreams resting in Liora glowed softly. The old woman reached into the gondola and lifted the rosebud made of morning light. This belongs to the baker near the Bridge of Bells, she said. He once wished for a garden, but he has forgotten. In the morning, he may place basil on his windowsill. It will be enough. She set the dream into her net, and the rosebud floated upward, dissolving into the fog. Then she lifted the warm golden dream. This belongs to a woman who has been too tired to bake. Tomorrow she will remember the comfort of flour on her hands. One by one, the old woman named the dreams, not loudly, but with the care of someone reading names from a book, beloved and very old. The folded letter was for a man who needed courage to write. The humming tune was for an empty room, waiting to be filled with music. A tiny blue paper boat was for a child who had lost it in a puddle, but would find it again in sleep. When the last dream had risen into the fountain mist, Liora felt lighter, though not empty. In the place where the dreams had rested, warmth remained. Why do people lose their dreams? She asked. The old woman folded her net across her knees. Because days can be noisy. Because hearts become busy carrying what must be done. Because even lovely dreams sometimes hide until the world grows quiet enough to hear them. The fountain sighed. Fog slipped over the marble edge and curled around Liora's sides. And what do gondolas dream? Asked the old woman. Liora had not considered this. She knew the dreams of passengers, the songs of gondoliers, the weight of footsteps, the taste of rain. But her own dream rested somewhere deep in her wood, as quiet as a pearl inside an oyster. I do not know, she said. The old woman nodded. Then drift onward. The fog may show you. The canal leading away from the square was wide and smooth. Liora followed it without steering. The blue lantern dimmed until the world became a gentle blur of silver and shadow. She passed a row of sleeping boats tied side by side, their covers shining with moisture. Some murmured in their sleep. One dreamed of the open Adriatic. Another dreamed of fresh paint. A third dreamed of the hands of the carpenter who had built it. Hands warm and careful, smelling of pine. Beyond the sleeping boats, the canal widened further, becoming almost a lagoon. The city fell back, and the water took on a soft green depth. Fog hovered low over its surface. Faraway bells sounded. But they were not marking time. They were calling to memories. There, in the open quiet, Liora saw another shape moving toward her. It was a gondola older than she was, its black sides faded to charcoal, its silver prow worn dull by years of mist. No gondolier stood at its stern. No passenger sat within, yet it moved with grace, each glide as smooth as breath. A lantern hung from its bow, but the flame inside was gold instead of blue. The old gondola came alongside Liora, and for a while they drifted together without speaking. Their reflections mingled beneath them. At last, the older boat said, "The fog has found you." "Yes," said Liora. "It finds each of us sooner or later. Some wake only once. Some wake often. Some forget by dawn." "Do you forget?" The old gondola's lantern flickered. "I remember enough." The two boats floated over the sleeping lagoon. Around them the fog thinned in places, revealing ghostly outlines of distant domes and bell towers, then closing again like a curtain. The water made almost no sound against their hulls. "I was told to learn what I dream," said Liora. The old gondola seemed to smile, though boats do not smile as people do. It was more a softening of lines, a gentleness in the way it rose and fell. "Then listen beneath the water," it said, "not to the city. Not to the fog. Listen to the wood that carries you." Liora became still. She listened first to the hush around her, to the distant bells, to the faint lap of tide. Then she listened deeper. She listened past the lacquer and the iron and the ropes. She listened into her own long body. At first she heard only echoes. Mateo's humming, laughter from summer afternoons, rain ticking on her cover, the scrape of an oarlock, the creak of old wood in winter cold. Then beneath all these, she heard trees. She heard leaves moving in a wind far from Venice, on a hillside where sunlight fell in green pieces through branches. She felt roots drinking rain from dark soil. She sensed birds landing lightly on limbs. She remembered, though she'd never remembered before, that before she was a gondola, she had been wood, and before she was wood, she had been part of living trees. And the trees had dreamed of water, not of being cut, shaped, sanded, and sealed, not of becoming an object. They had dreamed of movement, of carrying sky in reflections, of touching moonlight not with leaves, but with the whole length of themselves. They had dreamed of becoming a vessel for passage, a quiet companion between one shore and another. Liora trembled so gently that the water around her formed rings. "I dream of carrying," she whispered, "not just people, not just dreams. I dream of carrying peace from one place to another." The older gondola's golden lantern glowed in answer. "Then you know." A calm spread through Liora, deeper than floating. She understood that every slow journey she had taken through Venice, every patient passage beneath a bridge, every time she had waited while someone gazed in silence at a reflection. She had been fulfilling that dream. She had carried not only bodies but moments, stillness, wonder, small openings in the heart. The fog brightened. From the mist ahead came the sound of wings. A flock of white birds appeared, though they were not gulls. They seemed made of paper and moonlight, each wing marked with faint lines like handwriting. They circled above the two gondolas, then drifted lower, gliding without effort. One bird settled on Liora's prow. Its body was light as a dry leaf. On its wings were words she could not read, but she felt their meaning. Thank you, forgive me. Come home, rest now, I remember. These are messages never sent, said the older gondola. The fog carries them, too. The bird lifted again and joined the flock. Together, the birds moved toward the city, each finding its way to a window, a pillow, a sleeping hand, resting open on a blanket. Liora watched until they vanished into the pale maze of rooftops. When she turned back, the older gondola had begun to drift away. Will I see you again? Asked Liora. In fog, came the answer. In stillness. In the part of sleep that knows the way. The golden lantern grew smaller, then became a single warm point, then nothing at all. Liora remained alone, but she was not lonely. The lagoon held her gently. The city waited beyond the veil of mist, and somewhere within it, dreams were settling into their rightful places. After a while, the current turned. It nudged Liora toward a canal lined with cypress shadows. She followed. The blue lantern at her bow glowed again, softer than before, and its light revealed a narrow waterway she had never seen. On either side, doors opened in the stone, not into houses, but into memories. Through one doorway, she glimpsed a family gathered around a table, passing bowls of soup, while rain tapped the windows. Through another, she saw a young painter mixing colors at dawn, trying to capture the exact blue of the lagoon and laughing because it could not be done. Through a third, she saw Matteo as a boy, sitting in his grandmother's gondola, too small to row, holding an oar across his knees with solemn pride. Liora slowed at that memory. Matteo's grandmother stood behind the boy, strong and smiling, her hair braided beneath a red scarf. She guided his hands around the oar. Not against the water, she told him. With it. The canal is not something to conquer. It is something to understand. The boy nodded, serious and bright-eyed. He pushed the oar clumsily, and the little boat turned in a half-circle. His grandmother laughed, not to mock him, but with joy. The sound warmed the canal like sunlight. The memory faded, and the doorway became stone again. Liora understood then why Matteo touched her side each night before leaving. He was not only thanking a boat, he was thanking the water, his grandmother, the city, and all the quiet teachings that had brought him home to himself. The canal carried Liora onward until the buildings lowered and the fog began to thin. The first breath of morning had not yet arrived, but the night had softened, Its darkness was no longer deep blue, but gray at the edges. Soon she came to a small island garden hidden behind a wall. In waking life, perhaps it belonged to a convent or to an old palazzo, or perhaps to no one at all. In the dream city, its gate stood open to the water. Liora drifted through. The garden canal was narrow and still. Orange trees grew along its edge, their leaves glossy with mist. Even in the sleeping hour, the blossoms gave off a fragrance so delicate it seemed more like a memory of sweetness than sweetness itself. Stone benches rested beneath cypresses. A statue of an angel stood with one hand over its heart, its face calm and worn by time. At the end of the canal was a pool, round as a mirror. Liora floated into its center and came to rest. The blue lantern went out. For a moment there was complete darkness, but it was not frightening. It was the soft darkness behind closed eyes, the darkness of being held safely before waking. Then the pool began to glow from below, not brightly, not suddenly. A slow silver light rose through the water, and on its surface appeared a reflection. Liora expected to see herself, black and curved and familiar. Instead, she saw every passenger she had carried in a single day, then in many days, then in all her days. They appeared not as faces, but as feelings. A child's wonder, bright as a bell. An old man's peace, warm as wool. A newly married couple's quiet joy, fragile and shining. A woman traveling alone, finding comfort in the rhythm of the oar. Matteo, steady and kind. His grandmother, whose hands had taught the first movement. The trees, dreaming of water. All of them rested within Liora, not heavily, but like stars reflected on a canal. The angel statue seemed to lower its gaze. The fog above the pool turned golden at the edges. Liora felt a drowsiness begin in her keel and spread through her ribs. The dream was nearing its end. Already the hidden garden was becoming less distinct. The orange blossoms blurred. The cypress shadows thinned. The silver pool dimmed. A current, soft as breath, drew her backward through the gate and into the canal. She did not resist. She had carried dreams, found her own, and listened to the heart of the water. There was nothing more to seek. Venice began to return to its waking shape. The impossible doorways faded. The water square folded itself into mist. The fountain of fog became only a pale drift between buildings. Bridges lowered into their familiar places. The sleeping boats lay ordinary and still beneath their covers. Liora passed once more beneath the ivy bridge. On the palace step, the gray cat sat watching. "Did you learn?" it asked. "Yes," said Liora, though her voice was now only the quiet creak of wood. The cat blinked slowly. "Then sleep well when the rope finds you." The blue rope appeared ahead, trailing from the wooden post beside her usual mooring. It floated on the water like a line drawn between dream and morning. Liora glided toward it. The knot rose, gentle and sure, and settled around her bow. She was home. The lantern at her prow became a drop of dew. The oar lay still across her belly. The fog thinned just enough to reveal the small bridge, the shuttered windows, the damp stones shining faintly beside the canal. A few moments later, Matteo came walking softly along the fondamenta. The sky above the rooftops was beginning to pale. He carried a paper-wrapped loaf under one arm and wore his wool coat buttoned to the chin. When he reached Liora, he paused. Perhaps he noticed the dew on her prow glowing faintly blue. Perhaps he smelled orange blossoms where there were none. Perhaps he felt, without knowing why, that the morning was unusually peaceful. He placed his hand on her side. "Rested well?" he murmured. Liora did not answer in words. By daylight, she was only a gondola, black and graceful, rocking gently in the canal. But beneath Matteo's palm, her wood held a warmth that had not been there before. He smiled, as if he had heard something after all. Soon the city would wake. Bakers would open their shutters. Somewhere basil would be placed on a windowsill. A woman would take flour from a cupboard and remember the pleasure of kneading dough. A man would sit at a desk and write the letter he had postponed for years. A child would find a blue paper boat tucked beside a pillow and wonder how it had sailed home. And Liora would carry passengers again beneath the bridges of Venice. She would listen to their voices, their silences, their soft astonishment. She would move with the water, never against it. She would carry peace from one place to another. But for now, the canal remained quiet. The fog rested low over the water. The old houses leaned together. The bridge held its breath. Matteo stepped away to prepare for the day, and Liora floated in the final hush before morning, held by her rope, held by the tide, held by the dream she now remembered. And beyond the waking city, in the place where mist gathers what has been lost, the fountain still poured silver fog into the canals of sleep. The gray cat still watched from the palace step. The old woman still lifted her net with patient hands. The older gondola still drifted through the lagoon, its golden lantern glowing softly for any vessel that might wake and wonder. All was well in the hidden Venice. All was quiet. The water rocked gently. The fog breathed in. The fog breathed out. And now the story too begins to drift. Its lantern grows dimmer, softer, smaller, until it is only a warm point far away on still water. The canals fade into a silver hush. The bridges become curves of shadow. The windows close their golden eyes. There is nothing to hold, nothing to finish, nothing to follow. Only the gentle rise and fall of breath. Only the quiet tide. Only rest. May the dreaming gondola carry away the last small weight of the day. May the fog soften every sharp edge. May sleep come as easily as water beneath a boat, as softly as mist against old stone. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.